Okay everyone, welcome back. We're going to do another quick tying tutorial today. We are going to depart from the nymphs for a little bit and we're going to tie an A+ streamer here. This is a variation of a Clouser minnow. This pattern in particular, I tie it big, I tie it small. This one today is going to be one of the smaller ones that I tie. It's been just lights out on new Maloney's lately, been catching a ton of bass with it. I think it's a great imitation for the shad that have spawned in that lake. It's about the same size as them, maybe slightly bigger right now, but it's just been a really good pattern. So we'll mix it up today and get started. In the vise, we're going to use a Gamakatsu 60-degree bend jig hook, number 2. And we are going to use some medium bullseyes, red eye. It's kind of a really small profile, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. For thread, we're going to use UTC, Ultra Thread 140 denier in dark olive. And I'll start by just creating a little bit of a bump where I want that set of eyes to rest. Looks good. And I'll put a little bit of glue, a lot of glue in this fly. Little glue. You're going to lay that eye right up against that bump and take about 5 or 6 crisscross turns there. And then you can kind of position that, come back the opposite way. You'll want to adjust that eye as you're taking that first set of turns. That'll kind of secure it in place. And what you want to do is you want to wrap underneath the eyes all the way around. And do that 6, 7, 8 times, and we'll put another set of cross wraps on, and then under the eyes one more time. That should do pretty good. You'll take that thread, wind it back. For flash, we're going to use Flashabou, Mirage Flashabou in opal. 4 or 5 fibers is plenty. I'll take those fibers, I'll take my thread, and I'll do one wrap, kind of pinching that with my finger over those fibers. Then I'll double those back, slide that down onto my hook shank, just capture those in. Bring that thread forward, and we'll go ahead and clip that off. I use my vise as a gauge when I'm tying these so I get a consistent size tail. And on these smaller patterns, I like to clip the tail even with the front of that little bump. Whatever vise you're using, you can kind of figure out what those marks are on your vise. But I want my tail just a little bit longer than my flies, or than my the body of my fly, just slightly longer. Once you get that in, the next material that we're going to use is bucktail, and we're going to use white. One thing to keep in mind when you're working with bucktail, if you're trying to tie a tail that doesn't flare out, the closer you get to the tip of this tail, those fibers are going to stay tight and in shape better as you tie them down. As you get down towards these fibers, when you tighten down the thread on those fibers, it'll really flare them out. So as you're tying these, just kind of keep that in mind with what selection or what part of the tail you use. So for the tips here, I'm going to want to use some of this stuff on top. So I'll pinch off a little bit, not too much. You want to grab those and pull out any short fibers you can. Looks good. And I want a short tail on this, so I'm going to measure it. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to cut this right behind the eyes, basically. So I'll pinch it with my left hand. I'll cut that off with my right, and I keep that pinched. I lay it on top of the hook shank, take 1 or 2 nice loose wraps to capture it, and then I'll start tightening that down, working my way back. Looks good. And I'll cover that entire base of bucktail with this olive thread. Looks good. Next, flat diamond braid pearl. take a little section of that. We'll lay that in on the body. We'll wrap that forward. Tie that off. Clip it out. Now we're going to go down a little further and get some of this stuff towards the bottom. Looks good. The trick to tying clousters too, one thing to pay attention to as you're tying these is you want these things to ride with the top up. This is going to end up being the top. This is going to end up being the bottom. So always keep in mind, don't put too much material on the bottom of your fly. That'll cause it to ride sideways or ride upside down. You always want more material on the top of your fly than the bottom of the fly. It helps it keel correctly. So once again, we'll lay this in over the top. You want this to be a tapered body into that tail. So you want to stop short of that tail. And we're going to tie this in front of the eyes. So that looks pretty good right there. Clip that off. Bring your thread forward. I like to take a few wraps here. And if you want to add some durability, you can put a little bit of glue there. Now you want this thread up against the eye here as close as you can. You're going to lay this down on top and you're going to want to try to capture that loosely. Don't go too tight. 2 or 3 wraps and then you can start pulling that material back and getting it in place. The art of tying these clousters is getting a nice, even tapered head here, and you'll figure that out after your first couple. So once you get a nice wrap down on the front, you're going to come to the back, take a few turns. That'll flare out a little bit. That looks great. Bring that thread forward. Next material for the bottom is going to be Ripple Ice Fiber. The color is Minnow Mix. This stuff's not the most durable material, but it is incredibly flashy. I love the way it looks. I love the way it moves in the water. It'll wear out eventually, but we're just using this as a little bit of an accent right now. So I take my thread or my material, I kind of parse it out, and I fold it in half. That looks pretty good. And I'll clip that ball off the end there. And then right here, I'll kind of pinch it a little further out. I'll pull these short fibers out. Looks pretty good. One more clip. Same thing, we'll lay this on top. This stuff compresses really, really well when you tie it in. It's pretty easy to work with. Capture it a few times on the back. It looks good. This is always going to be super bulky when you first get it on here. I like to come in and trim that out. Perfect. Bring that forward. It's not a bad time to just lay a little bit of super glue on this head here. A little tacky super glue will help bind those threads as you shape this head. We're going to flip the fly over this point. And the next material is going to be Steve Farrar's Flash Blend, and this color is Bleeding Gray. It's a great color. It's dark gray. It's got some red and some blue tones through it. I really like this stuff. So, pull out a small amount. That looks pretty good. We're going to double this over and probably triple it over. You'll just fold it in half. And we'll probably do that one more time. You can clip this in like that. Parse some of those out so there's a nice blended look. We'll double that over one more time. Looks great. Okay, so we'll measure that out. You want that to blend with that tail. Looks good right there. Pull out some of those shorter fibers. Looks great. Keep that material pinched, lay it in on top of that fly, capture it with a few turns, and you want to pull that material back. Always keep in mind you're going to have a tapered head running down there. Put a couple nice hard wraps on that. One thing right here, a little bit more super glue. We're going to shape this head just a little bit more. Looks good. Last material, a little bit more ripple ice fiber in Peacock. This is a great top line, dark olivey black color. Once again, this stuff does tend to wear out. It's not the most durable material on the face of the planet, but it's just such good material I can't help but tie to my flies. So we'll just go ahead and take this normal amount here, the small clump. We'll clip the tips, straighten it up. Pull out any super short fibers. Lay that on top. A little bit more super glue here. All right, looks pretty good. Go ahead and whip finish that. Flip that off. We're going to coat it with some UV fly cure. Hit it with our light. Great. Now we're going to finish by kind of trim this thing out a little bit. You'll see some of those longer ripple ice fibers. You can go ahead and trim those down a little bit. Looks great, and some of those will just wear down with time and use too. Looks awesome. There it is. It's great shad imitation, great little bait fish. I fished this on floating lines, sinking line, anything from S3, even intermediate at this point in time, to T14. Just get it in the water, throw it up against the banks, especially if you see some shad around. You can prospect with this fly, let it sink, big erratic strips, and it's a great bass fly. Been catching a ton of fish on it, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. You can pick up all of these materials at the shop at 78 South Washington Street in downtown Sonora, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.